Welcome to my channel, Worldwise. I bet you didn't know that one of the boldest heists in history happened in broad daylight, right in the heart of Paris. The day began like any other in Paris. The sun rose over the River Seine on October 19, 2025. Its light touched the ancient stones of the Louvre Museum. Inside, a quiet hum filled the grand halls. Staff prepared for another busy day. Tourists were already lining up outside. They came from all over the world. They wanted to see masterpieces like the Mona Lisa and the Venus de Milo. The city was waking up, unaware of the drama about to unfold. It was a crisp autumn morning, full of promise. No one could have predicted that the heart of French culture was about to be attacked in broad daylight. Around 8:30 in the morning, something unusual happened. A large construction truck appeared on the riverfront road. It was not part of any scheduled work. The truck positioned itself directly below a first-floor balcony of the Louvre. This was no ordinary truck. It was equipped with a mechanical lift, the kind used for high-level repairs. To a casual observer, it might have looked like routine maintenance. This simple disguise was the first step in a meticulously planned crime. The thieves were hiding in plain sight, using the city's constant motion as their cover. The calm of the morning was about to be shattered completely. The truck's lift began to rise. It carried 4 individuals dressed as construction workers. They wore hard hats and high-visibility vests. They looked like any other workers in a city under constant renovation. The lift ascended slowly, bringing them level with the balcony of the Gallery of Apollo. This legendary hall houses the French crown jewels. It is a symbol of the nation's royal history. The tourists below, still waiting to enter, barely gave the truck a second glance. The scene was perfectly orchestrated, a bold move against one of the most famous buildings on the planet. This was not a secret nighttime operation. It was a brazen daylight assault. The thieves were counting on surprise and speed. They knew the museum's morning routines. They knew where the priceless jewels were kept. And they knew exactly how they planned to get inside. The entire city of Paris, and indeed the world, was about to witness one of the most audacious museum heists in modern history. The clock was ticking. In just a few minutes, priceless artifacts would vanish, and a national landmark would become a crime scene. The day Paris stood still was just beginning. The 4 disguised men reached the balcony. They were now at the threshold of the Gallery of Apollo, but a thick reinforced glass wall stood in their way. This was a modern security feature designed to protect the museum. The thieves, however, came prepared for this obstacle. One of them produced a powerful, industrial-grade disc cutter. The tool, typically used to slice through concrete and steel, whirred to life. Its high-pitched scream cut through the morning air. It was a sound that did not belong in a place of quiet reverence. The attack on the Louvre had truly begun. Sparks flew as the saw blade bit into the security glass. The thieves worked with alarming efficiency. They were not amateurs. They knew their tools and their target. The thick glass, meant to stop intruders, was being defeated with shocking ease. Inside the gallery, the few guards on duty heard the noise. They were confused at first. They probably thought it was just construction sounds from outside, but the noise grew louder and more aggressive. It was the sound of a violation, a forceful entry into a sacred space. The guards started to realize that something was terribly wrong. In a matter of moments, the thieves carved a large hole in the glass wall. The barrier was breached. One by one, they stepped through the jagged opening and onto the polished floors of the Gallery of Apollo. They were now inside, surrounded by centuries of French history. They were not there to admire the art. They were there to plunder it. Their faces were determined. They carried their power tools with them, not as tools anymore, but as weapons. The quiet sanctuary of art had been invaded by a loud and violent force. The entire entry took only a few crucial minutes. From the arrival of the truck to the moment they stepped inside, the operation was a model of criminal precision. They had used their disguise to get close. They had used their equipment to bypass the physical defenses. They had exploited the time just before the museum opened to the public, when security was at a transitional stage. They had successfully broken into what many believed was an impenetrable fortress of culture. Now the real prize was within their grasp, and the most chaotic part of their plan was about to start. Once inside, the thieves confronted the museum guards. They did not brandish guns or knives. Instead, they threatened the guards with the humming power tools they had just used. The sight of these industrial saws, combined with the men's aggressive actions, was enough to cause panic. The guards were unarmed and outnumbered. They made the immediate decision to trigger the main museum alarm and begin an evacuation. Their priorities shifted from protecting the artifacts to protecting the people inside. The few early access visitors and staff members in nearby rooms were suddenly caught in a scene of chaos. Alarms began to blare throughout the vast museum. The loud, piercing sound echoed through the empty halls. It was a signal of distress that turned a place of beauty into a place of fear. Tourists who were just entering the museum were told to leave immediately. Confusion and panic spread quickly. People ran towards the exits, not knowing what was happening. Was it a fire? Was it a terror attack? Rumors flew through the crowd. The thieves had created the perfect diversion. All eyes were on the evacuation, while their real work was happening inside the now sealed-off gallery. While chaos reigned outside the gallery, the thieves went to work on the display cases. They used hammers and the butts of their tools to smash the protective glass. The sound of shattering glass added to the noise and confusion. They were not careful. They were fast. They grabbed at the glittering treasures inside the cases, tiaras, necklaces, and brooches that had once belonged to French empresses and queens. Their movements were rough and hurried. This was a smash and grab, not a delicate operation. They were racing against the clock, knowing that police would be on their way. Their escape was just as planned as their entry. After only 4 minutes inside the gallery, they had what they came for. They retreated back through the hole they had made in the wall and onto the lift. The lift lowered them back to the ground. They abandoned the truck, but a quick-thinking museum employee managed to stop them from setting it on fire to destroy evidence. The thieves then jumped onto 2 waiting scooters. They sped away along the riverfront, weaving through traffic. They disappeared onto the Boulevard Périphérique, the main ring road around Paris, and then onto the A6 motorway, melting into the city's traffic. When the dust settled, authorities began the heartbreaking task of assessing the damage. The thieves had been incredibly specific in their targets. They stole 8 priceless items from the 19th century, all part of the French crown jewels collection. These were not just expensive accessories, they were pieces of history. Among the stolen items were the stunning diamond tiara and brooch that once belonged to Empress Eugénie. Also taken were an emerald necklace and earrings made for Empress Marie-Louise, Napoleon's second wife. The loss was a direct blow to France's imperial past. The list of stolen treasures continued. A magnificent sapphire tiara, necklace, and earrings worn by Queen Marie-Amélie were also gone. These pieces were famous for their deep blue stones and exquisite craftsmanship. A special reliquary brooch, a piece of immense religious and historical importance, was also snatched. In their haste, the thieves had actually grabbed 9 items, but as they fled, they dropped the 170-year-old crown of Empress Eugénie. It fell to the ground and was badly damaged. The fact that they left a crown behind showed just how rushed their escape was. The monetary value of the stolen jewels is difficult to calculate. Initial estimates placed their material worth around $2 million. The Paris prosecutor, Laure Becquot, later valued them at 88 million euros, or about $102 million. But honestly, these numbers are meaningless. The historical and cultural value of these items is immeasurable. They are irreplaceable. They tell the story of France's journey through monarchy and empire. Owning them is like owning a page from a history book. Their loss is not a financial one, it is a cultural wound for the entire nation. Some experts believe their true value on the collector's market could exceed $1 billion. What made the theft even more puzzling was what the thieves left behind. They completely ignored other more valuable jewels in the same gallery. The famous Regent diamond, valued at over 51 million euros on its own, was left untouched. This fact strongly suggested that the thieves were not just grabbing whatever they could, they were working from a specific shopping list. This was not a random act of greed. It was a targeted theft, likely commissioned by a wealthy and secretive collector. The thieves were not stealing for themselves. They were fulfilling an order for someone who wanted these specific pieces of history. In the aftermath of the heist, attention quickly turned to the Louvre's security. How could this have happened at one of the world's most protected museums? The investigation revealed a series of shocking security failures. The localized alarm system for the specific balcony the thieves used had been broken for days. It had been reported, but not fixed. As a result, only the main museum alarm sounded, and there was a critical delay. This gave the thieves precious extra minutes to carry out their plan, without an immediate targeted response from security staff. The problems did not end there. A review of the museum's surveillance system showed huge gaps in coverage. Astonishingly, 1 out of every 3 rooms in that wing of the museum did not have CCTV cameras. The area around the Gallery of Apollo was a known blind spot. Furthermore, the external cameras did not fully monitor the balcony that the thieves used for their entry. The criminals had clearly done their homework. They knew exactly where the security system was weakest and exploited those vulnerabilities perfectly. It was a failure of technology and procedure. The French public and politicians reacted with outrage and disbelief. President Emmanuel Macron called the robbery an attack on our history. Other officials described it as a national humiliation and a wound to the French soul. The incident was seen as a major embarrassment, exposing the country's most cherished cultural institution as vulnerable. The Louvre's director, Laurence Descartes, publicly admitted to the security failures. She took full responsibility and offered her resignation to the Ministry of Culture. Her resignation was not accepted, but the incident sparked an urgent national debate. This debate focused on the state of security at France's museums. The Louvre was already slated for a massive security and renovation project, estimated to cost between 700 and 800 million euros. The heist proved just how desperately that upgrade was needed. The event served as a brutal wake-up call, not just for the Louvre, but for cultural institutions across the country. It showed that even in the 21st century, with all our modern technology, determined criminals can still find ways to steal history right out from under our noses, if we are not constantly vigilant. This shocking 2025 robbery was not the first time the Louvre has been the victim of a major theft. The museum has a long and storied history, and part of that history includes daring heists. The most famous theft occurred in 1911. The Mona Lisa, Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece, was stolen by a former employee named Vincenzo Peruggia. He simply hid in a closet overnight and walked out with the painting under his coat the next morning. The world was stunned. The painting was missing for 2 years before it was finally recovered in Italy. Another significant loss happened in 1976. Thieves managed to steal the coronation sword of King Charles X. It was an object of immense historical value, a key part of France's royal regalia. Unlike the Mona Lisa, the sword was never seen again. It is believed to have been dismantled or disappeared into a private collection, lost to the public forever. Then, in 1998, another daylight robbery took place. A painting by the French artist Camille Corot was cut from its frame and stolen from the museum's walls. That painting also remains missing to this day. The 2025 heist, however, stands out for its audacity and the significance of what was taken. It is considered the most serious theft at the museum in nearly 3 decades. It combined the daylight bravery of the 1998 theft with the historical significance of the items lost in 1976. The incident also came at a time when French museums were already on high alert. In the year preceding the Louvre heist, there had been a series of smaller but still significant museum robberies across the country, including in Burgundy and Limoges, suggesting a growing trend of organized art crime. These past events provide a sobering context for the most recent robbery. They show that the Louvre has always been a target. Each theft teaches a new lesson in security. The Mona Lisa theft led to better protection for paintings, but the 2025 heist exposed new weaknesses, particularly in protecting entire galleries and countering modern, well-equipped criminals. History shows that the battle to protect our shared cultural heritage is a constant one. The ghosts of past heists serve as a reminder that these treasures are always at risk, and we can never afford to let our guard down. The French authorities launched a massive investigation immediately after the heist. The case was handed over to a special unit that deals with organized crime and art theft. A team of between 60 and 100 investigators began working around the clock. The crime scene in the Gallery of Apollo was meticulously examined. Forensic experts collected around 150 DNA samples and fingerprints from the abandoned truck, the broken glass, and the damaged crown left behind. The police knew that every small piece of evidence was crucial in tracking down the perpetrators of this audacious crime. Their hard work paid off quickly. Just 6 days after the robbery, on October 25th, police made their first arrests. 2 suspects were taken into custody. One of them was apprehended at Charles de Gaulle Airport as he was attempting to board a flight to Algeria. By early November, 4 suspects had been officially charged in connection with the heist. Surprisingly, they were not the sophisticated master criminals many had expected. They were described as petty criminals and blue-collar workers, including a 39-year-old taxi driver and a 34-year-old former garbage collector. One suspect remains at large. Despite the arrests, the most important question remains unanswered. Where are the jewels? As of today, November 18, 2025, not a single one of the 8 stolen items has been recovered. The investigation continues, both in France and internationally, with the help of Interpol. The fear among experts is that the jewels may never be seen in their original form again. The greatest danger is that the thieves or the person who hired them will break the pieces apart. They might dismantle the tiaras and necklaces to sell the individual diamonds, emeralds, and sapphires on the black market. The Louvre Museum reopened to the public on October 22nd, but the Gallery of Apollo remains sealed off indefinitely, a scar on the face of the institution. The heist has left a lasting impact. It has forced a complete re-evaluation of museum security in the modern age. The hunt for the stolen crown jewels is now a race against time. The world watches and waits, hoping that these priceless symbols of history can be saved from being destroyed forever. The story of the Louvre heist is not over. It will only end when and if these lost treasures are brought back home.